Conservatives would have liked to be working today to counter the doubling of housing costs this Prime Minister has caused, or the record food price inflation, which has been 36% higher in Canada than in the US. But unfortunately, the Prime Minister has paralyzed Parliament by refusing your ruling directing his government to turn over evidence in the $400 million green slush fund scandal that the Auditor General says involves 186 conflicts of interest, with the chair of the fund found guilty. What has he got to hide?
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition is not being truthful with Canadians. It is the RCMP Commissioner himself who said the RCMP's ability to receive and use information obtained through this production order and under the compulsory powers afforded by the Auditor General Act in the course of a criminal investigation could give rise to concerns under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. It is therefore highly unlikely that any information obtained by the RCMP under the motion where privacy interests exist could be used to support a criminal prosecution or further a criminal investigation. Mr. Speaker, let's get
This is a $400 million scandal involving Liberal appointees giving millions of dollars to their own companies, and the minister's story is now changing. Last week, she claimed that the government had given documents to the RCMP. This week, they claim that if they gave documents to the RCMP, it would cause the Charter of Rights to come crashing down. It sounds like there's a new story every week to justify paralyzing Parliament to cover up the truth. What is in these documents about this $400 million scandal that the Prime Minister is so afraid of?
This is a typical witch hunt from the Leader of the Opposition to go after people who have nothing to do with this. These are files such as personnel files that contain private information of individuals who have nothing to do with what is going on. Mr. Speaker, it is the RCMP and the Auditor General themselves who raise concerns with this motion, and it is the government's view that we should send this to committee so that we can get on with the important work of this House and protect the rights of Canadians.
A witch hunt? The Ethics Commissioner appointed by this government has found the chair of the fund in violation of the law. The Auditor General, also appointed by this government, says there were 186 conflicts of interest involving Liberal appointees giving millions of dollars to their own companies. $400 million. Potential criminality, according to the main whistleblower in the scandal. Any other employer would voluntarily turn over all the evidence to the police if it had been ripped off by its own staff. What is the Prime Minister hiding?
Mr. Speaker, if and when the police request that information, it will obviously be handed over because that is proper judicial process. But when it is Parliament that is doing it, this is where Canadians should be concerned, Mr. Speaker, because when he is going after the rights of other Canadians, it's only a matter of time before his political vendettas come after the rights of all Canadians.
Costs are up, crime is up, time is up, and corruption is off the charts. A fish rots from the head down. So is it any wonder that Liberal cronies appointed to the Green Slush Fund by a Prime Minister twice convicted of ethics violations engaged in corruption? And this is not small corruption, Mr. Speaker. It's $400 million. And Mr. Speaker, you ordered the production of these documents. Why won't these Liberals stop the cover-up and produce them?
9 minutes in question period, and slogans are up, Mr. Speaker. Slogans are up again. Canadians are sick and tired of them, Mr. Speaker, repeating the same false things, Mr. Speaker, and repeating the same slogan. What these Conservatives are about, Mr. Speaker, is going after the personal file of employees and former employees. They're targeting STDC today. Who are they going to target tomorrow? That's what on this side of the aisle. We stand for democracy. We'll stand for rights. We'll stand up for Canada.
It's pretty simple who we're targeting, Mr. Speaker. We're targeting corruption, corruption that they enabled, corruption that they're hiding, and corruption that they refuse to produce the documents for. Mr. Speaker, These are documents that you ordered the production of. So Canadians should ask themselves, why aren't they producing them? They're not producing them because they are so damaging. They are so bad. They will destroy this government. And therefore, they've used up 7 days of House of Commons time to hide their corruption. Stop the corruption. Produce the documents.
Mr. Speaker, again, the Conservatives are saying things that are false. The only party that has been putting up speakers for the past week are the Conservatives. So they are the ones that are filibustering their own motion. But let's talk about why they might be filibustering that motion. Rob Walsh, the former law clerk, said, in my humble opinion, it is an abuse of its powers for the House to use its power to demand and...
Chers colleagues.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I notice the volume gets up when they don't want to hear the truth. So let's go back to that. The only members of Parliament who have been debating this motion are Conservative members of Parliament. They are filibustering their own motion. And let me tell you why, Mr. Speaker. It might have something to do with Rob Walsh, the former law clerk, who stated, it is an abuse of its powers for the House to use its power to demand and get documents from the government in order to transfer them to a third party that wouldn't otherwise receive them, or to compel the government to give documents to the third party. They want to get around the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. They're going after Canadians. Who's next?
Hear, hear.
Mr. Speaker, the government has all sorts of excuses why it won't provide documents to this House or to the RCMP about the $400 million spending scandal. They falsely claim it would violate privacy and that it would negatively impact the RCMP's investigation and that it would violate charter rights. The Constitution is clear. Parliament is supreme. Parliament has the lawful authority to order the production of documents. So why is this government consistently trampling on the constitutional authority of this House?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, that was some incredible doublespeak from my colleague across the way. It's actually the RCMP who has said this, and I quote, the RCMP's ability to receive and use information obtained through this production order and under the compulsory powers afforded by the Auditor General Act in the course of a criminal investigation could give rise to concerns under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. There is significant risk that the motion can be interpreted as a circumvention of normal investigative processes and charter protections. For a party that claims to respect the police, they certainly don't respect police independence.
Mr. Speaker, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms also includes Sections 3, Sections 4, and Sections 5, which is about the democratic rights of Canadians. And Canadians have the right to be democratically elected on the floor of this House, and the majority of this House has demanded the production of these documents related to the $400 million spending scandal. We did the same thing with the Winnipeg lab documents. Why does this government consistently ignore the democratic wishes of the people's elected representatives and deny this House